I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, Sattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, mind consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangati bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asurs, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Chenrezig te ata om gate gate paragate parasangati bodhisoha Baba gonji zonji gaye de me doji shi doji doji shiwa doji ragi baji me tumbe judanji shudin goye zo yeri zonja ji jo shiwa dang ve don nube dang zhe wa dan zu ba jun qin bun zun zun jo ji ja shi de jan de na de le yu. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of dark bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love. Let them pour upon the earth your disciples as we are ready. Shower of rains and teachings deep and wide. Lai I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Edam Guru Radha Badalagam Niradayami Shada Jodi Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yazu Jindagi Chini Jibe Zonam Jindro La Menje Zonye Rubajo Jada Jodi Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yazu Jindagi Chini Jibe Zonam Jindro La Menje Zonye Rubajo Jada Jodi Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Yazu Jindagi Chini Jibe Zonam Jindro La Menje Zonye Rubajo.
What are the ladies of the Nosaki Lendesha Sambashidat, Sambasan, Judusha, Sungan, San Judusha, Tella, and San Judusha Hotel Marvetella, Chitembatan, Chabat Tujam, and Chabat Tujam, what the Mother Tujam, what the Talari, what the Chinches and a Ruchina. La Payjana Jatan Guchukungandoa, English Cabando, Chabatu, Jean Biscuit.
Okay, so once again, everyone, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and specifically, we're looking at the section on karma and its results. That section has three categories. First, reflecting on karma and its results in general. Second, reflecting on karma and its results in its particulars, or in a detailed way. And then the third category of how to turn away from non-virtue and engage in virtue once one has reflected on karma and its effects in general and specifically. Turning towards ethics would be a way to abbreviate that, or cultivating ethical behavior. So we're in the section that is how to turn away from non-virtue after you've reflected on karma, its results in detail and in general. And that section has two categories. First, a general explanation, and then a second category in particular, the way of purification through the four opponent powers. So that's the section that we're dealing with now, in particular, the way of purification through the four opponent powers. And the section in the English text begins on page 251. So previously we've gone through this section, but it's very good if we can again.
Bejan ba me ba de mo mo la su bo an ki ne ba shun na che ma nya ba ma ja par ja de mo ro yus ton ba tu ji jen ji shi ju bi ta na su so ba na be go so se tong bu de jang ji be ne ne shu ji ma go ba be ba yin na nyo mo bo an ki na su de ba mo sa nu wo de sa ba do te sha ju ma de sa ji go de ba ba sha ki ta mo bo so wa de tel be go re se tong ba de sa re.
So this section, in particular, the way of purification through the four powers, Lama Tsongkhapa has just one category here. But when we look at Jayan Sheba's commentary, we find that he has 8 categories, and the first category is the following. Though you make great effort not to be defiled by wrongdoing, faults may arise due to such things as carelessness and a preponderance of the afflictions. If this happens, it is inappropriate to disregard them without caring, so you must try to apply a remedy about which the compassionate teacher spoke. So this is the first section in Jayan Sheba's outline, and it states that you shouldn't just disregard non-virtues that you engaged in, for instance, you engaged in under the influence of ignorance or under the influence of not knowing or under the influence of the afflictions. So you shouldn't disregard those kind of non-virtues that you commit. You should apply a remedy that the Buddha has presented. So it states here that the Buddha has presented many methods. So this is speaking about the remedy the remedy and specifically the remedy for the non-virtuous deeds that we have committed. So when we look at this section in Jayan Sheba's 8 categories, that is a real summary of what Jayan Sheba says that section in that first section means.
What the shit you choose on the little water. What the done, so that no shit you to the Morgan nuns and Sujun to the Yumar. And the Shantu with you can to get, and the Shantu sent with Sujun to Euro, and then Hardun there, Sujun to what things are. Don't want shit you to what things.
So the next section. We find the second and third parts, categories of Jayan Sheba's outline. So the second category, after the one we just described, which is the first, deals with how to remedy downfalls, or here the word infractions is used. So this is when one has a downfall in relation to any among the 3 types of vows. So those types of vows are the individual liberation vows, the bodhisattva vows, and the tantric vows. So this is specifically dealing with the remedy for those types of vows, and for instance, the individual liberation vows, the fully ordained monks and nuns vows. There is a ceremony called sojung, where there is a purification that takes place of an infraction or a downfall. And then the bodhisattva vows also have their own ceremony for remedying or ceremony for purification of downfalls, and then the tantric vows have those ceremonies as well. So this is the category number 2 in Jayan Sheba's outline, how to repair downfalls.
어제 다들 디바시지 주들 어디 디바시지 주들 때는 두리진 지송 다 가다 디바시지 주 내부터 지들면 내부터 내부터 두리진 지송 내부터 좀 제바진 손이 카니노와 어디 내부터 두리진 손한테 디바시지비 춘 도지샤테 추지 내빈들레 샹바 샹주 선바 첸모 추지 단데나 디바 셰지 사바 셰지 나반주로서 어때 내부터 두두진 소모 이사래 근데 제 강하시는 단만 내부터 제바시 야
So the next section in Jayan Sheba's outline deals with how one purifies misdeeds through the four opponent powers. So here the word sins is used. That's just the word they're choosing to use for the one we usually say is misdeeds. So here, this section is broken into two categories. The presentation of the four opponent powers in an abbreviated way, or the summary of the four opponent powers, and then the expanded explanation. So we find a quote from the sutra giving the four teachings in the text here, and it says, Maitreya, if bodhisattvas, the great heroes, possess these four teachings, then they will overcome any sins that they have committed and accumulated. So that particular section is the summary or the abbreviated explanation of the four opponent powers. And then it says, what are the four? That begins the expanded explanation of the four opponent powers. Less so.
all true
Less so.
Never had to be taught somebody, Tanjito. What the shit there, never told you said what things and Takante. Tangas Dibaka Chibi by Inaya, T. Cody number two, never told you Jetuaina, what the Diva knew in the actions of Marba.
Okay. So then it says, what are the four? So this is the expanded explanation. They are the power of eradication, the power of applying remedies, the power of turning away from faults, and the power of the foundation. So the power of eradication refers to regret for having engaged in a non-virtuous activity. That's number one. Number two, the power of applying remedies. We find the 6 remedies presented below. Number three, the power of turning away from faults, and then number 4, the power of the foundation. So these are the 4 opponent powers, and it is stated no matter how much, no matter what misdeed you engage in, that misdeed can be harmed by the 4 opponent powers.
What that devil Juba jet, and what the devil knows to the never good should be taught to trade never good should be taught to you or is never good should be to Niba to Nibola true less to Tanto the Samola Tempest, Tamarvin, the Samola Tempest, Tangante, Shera Nibola, so shishing the do so, and then see land, Tundal Santan, and the Luba, what is do the Samola Tempest said to Mother, Takante Shera Nibutan, Tiripai Budatan, what the garden do to do by Ina, San Tambaina, what the Luba in what the Tibatan was on Madva, do the Samola Tempest Tambache. Then but the Tony Lameba to Marva. Tony Lameba da Magic USA, da Magic USA, Chunila, Jujin, Demon Taba, each of us, Tony Gua to Marva, Tony Gua, that says to cousin us Damashi Tarwa, Demon Taba said, Demon Taba said, Garsana, Deba Truba de Demon Tabaris, Deba Truba de Haman member Matuji, Tomba Demba Truba, Sugar Demba Truba member Tenemaris, Deman and Tabaris, Deman and Deba Matubaris, Deman Tabas would end the things of Marba.
Let's go over to Okay, so the first category, the power of eradication, is referring to having regret. So this is number one. The second of the four opponent powers is the power of applying remedies. So there are 6 that are presented here. First, we have dependence on the profound sutras, includes such activities as receiving the oral transmissions of sutras, such as the Prajnaparamita, retaining their meaning, and reading them. So here, if one is to hear a word or a line of any of the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, or read them or memorize them, then one is engaging in this category, which is dependence upon profound sutras, which serves as a remedy to our misdeeds. The second category is interest in emptiness. So interest in emptiness means to comprehend the reality in which there is no self, in which is luminously clear, to have conviction that the mind is primordially pure. So here, one is comprehending and then having conviction about the lack of self, of selflessness. So initially, one has this idea that things are truly established, and then there becomes a conviction when one recognizes the selflessness, that there is, that all things are empty, or that emptiness is the nature of reality. So number 2 is really meditation on emptiness. Dixon.
This way. Ta somban debal deba marba. Somban deba ne yegi jabala zoom, yegi jabala zoom, subje, no cheba jan chuga jin de ba wos, o de debal deba sa marba. Ta yegi jabala suba ne kar sugre. Ta saji changa da judiji da changa la suba tu sukalo da jin du ju gon ne ngajin ko ne no de ngad deba ina debal deba. O de debal deba so de bare debal deba. O te debal no no jero ta.
So the next category of a remedy is dependence on recitation. It means to recite according to the rituals the special formula, such as the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva. So here, this is where one is engaging in the recitation of a mantra of a deity, and while also doing the tantric ritual that accompanies that deity, engaging in the front and self-generation practices that have the visualization, such as the mantra garland at the heart and so forth. So if while one is reciting mantras, there is this visualization, here the special formula, the ritual, according to the rituals, the special formula such as the 100-syllable mantra. So here the rituals are the front and self-generation and so forth. So if one is doing that, one is engaging in dependence on recitation, which is serving as a remedy.
Then Naji, they judge Nimu in the Montes, they judge Yamat Shabaina, Debi Garshurumures, then they judge Shabate and the Moment Amres, Marba, Butterle, what the Maba said the Grace, Butterle Maba said Naji, they judge Mame, and Debi Maba said the Grace, what the Sonsoin.
So in this category of dependence on recitation, we find a quote from the Tantra requested by Sabahu, where it makes analogies, it compares the recitation to various things. So it states that the dependence upon recitation is like the fire that burns away the trees of our misdeeds, and it is like the rays of the dependence upon recitation is like the rays of the sun that melt away the snow on the snow mountains of our misdeeds, and is like the butter lamp which illuminates and therefore clears away the darkness of our misdeeds. So these comparisons are made in that tantra requested by Sabahu.
What did that develop them, but the Mona should be doing person from Barova. They and the neighborhood should be taught to call the Kishivachi wound. Tony Gombi me, Dibal Node, Tony Gombi Nemi, Debi Congress, Tony Gombi, Mame, Dibal Nodes, then Naji, what the Chokal Kishivachi would.
So we can apply these comparisons to all of the remedies that are presented here, not just the dependence upon recitation. So we could say meditation upon emptiness is like the fire that burns away the thickets of our misdeeds. It's like the sun's rays that melt the snows of our misdeeds, snow mountains of our misdeeds. It's like the butter lamp which clears away the darkness of our misdeeds. So when we think of these comparisons, we can apply the understanding of them to these other remedies as well.
Kuzula Tembaro, Kuzu Temba Shiva Marba, Sanjil Tebanian, Kuzu Shevas, Kuzu Shevas, Otamarba, Sanjil Tebanian, Sanji, and the Sage Sanji Kujiva, Sang Sanjita, Setan, Shintan, what the Kujiva painting, but the tongue painting, what the Shiva de Kuzula Temba Sinzamara.
The good Jimba Gozu, Chiba.
Kuzu was Shibaro, and the Laris Haji no tension was no tension.
So that's number 3 in the 6 categories of remedies. Number 4 is dependence upon images, means to make images of the Buddha once you have acquired faith in him or her. So here, this is if one has faith in a particular image one is constructing and then constructs it, then one is engaging in dependence upon images. So it really means making various statues, making the tankas, or painting the tankas of the images of the Buddhas. So here the qualifying factor is that one has this faith of conviction while constructing the statue or image. Diksum.
Oh, Jita, the Kuzula Temba Jita, the no, what is she? Nobody got a Chubal Temba, Chubal Temba, that Chubal Naman and Tasso Pua, what the Chubal Temba, Chuba Puzuna, Dibatan was
That's so. So number 5 is dependence on worship, to make a variety of offerings to the images of the Buddha or stupa. So here, this is just referring to making offerings. So making offerings.
That robot the Chenla Temba, Chenla Temba, Sanjit na Jesse Chamona, Saint Tuishi, Zua was, and the Nangosu Shua, Sante, Jayamon, Sakarza. Taka the never told it what the Sanjit the Wagi, how do you sonjas, how do you marry? How do you know what to say, what the Duba is, and to say what they are movie orders.
And then number 6 is dependence on names. Means to hear the recitation of and retain the names of Buddhas and the great conquerors' children. So that's the 6th one. Then it says these 6 types of remedies are only those that occur in Shantideva's compendium of trainings. There are many others. So these are not the only 6, but these 6 are found in Shantideva's compendium of trainings.
Tangazo Nabaji now the neighbor good should talk to Tanjarota. You should not Hindu the Chulu General Jana Kandays at the Roa. The General Javaina and no the Samula never said 네 예수도 저도 삼사가 말어 바이블을 로셔야 어떤 잡으면 돼 전나진 힌두당 아니 조시도 강가로
So we could look at other religious traditions, such as the Hindu tradition, the Christian tradition, the Jewish tradition, and find very similarities there. So here when we look at this first category of dependence on sutras, in the Christian tradition we would say this would be a dependence upon the Bible. So in the Hindu tradition we also have texts as well, which there's this idea of dependence upon these texts. So we would find similarities in other religious traditions as well.
다 네바 돈이 공부해야 돼. 아니 줄로 예다절 돈이 공부해야 돼. 아유. 그저 내가 주고 걔네도 그러고. 내가 말하고 공부해요 말하고. 어때 돈이 공부해야 예다자 매번 도와. 근데 전자부 자바이나 내가 주고 공부해야 돼 도와.
네, 대머리.
야. 근데 네바 고조를 때봐서 고조 이슈 쪽에 라칸을 지야도 안에 제지 시대 주도와 시대 주지야도 자자도 들지야도 고조를 때봐 나왔던 잡으시 주도다.
네, 이치테바 유나 the issue but the keleng도 the zuna ichitepa yuna.
어디 이제.
Tene the tepa la demba.
아. tene 어디 고조를 때봐 고조를 이슈 라칸지야 요아래 제지 시대 주 말봐. 자동도 조도 kuzulo de wo de jian de zamarbe
lesa
chobal de ba isu choba mo puyando dabu do
lesa
tene or da debala de basana kuzu han da yo jire
de yere lesa
isu zolo han da yo jiro hindu zo nam shi ba zang marbe
lesa
wo de dabu do
ine konzu da che dan dunje we gong yere
So then
the third is dependence upon recitation. So we do know that in the Christian tradition there is certainly a rosary that is done, and also in the Hindu tradition we find a mala or rosary being used for various mantras and so forth. So I asked Rinpoche, is there in these other traditions this idea of front and self-generation? And he said there might be some of these ideas where there is an actual meditation practice that accompanies some of these recitations or some of these prayers done. So the next, dependence upon images, we would also find a similarity in other religious traditions. We find in the churches various images, such as the image of Jesus Christ, and if you have faith in Jesus and then create this statue, then it clears away non-virtue in a very similar way. Then dependence on worship, we can say very easily there is this idea of making offerings and so forth. And then dependence upon names, we have this again. We see that the use of the rosary beads in the Christian tradition, and also the use of mantras in the Hindu tradition.
So
in very similar to us, we could say dependence on worship or dependence on offering. The Christian tradition really has this dependence upon making offerings or making offerings. The Deepa Shaba, the Yishu, the Deepa Shaba, the Yishu Gegen, then it Cheran, the Zonga Jadan, the Nyepo. So then when we look at the four opponent powers, we find in the Christian tradition the first, the power of eradication. So we find this idea of regret for misdeeds in the Christian tradition. And then the next, the power of applying remedies. We also find this in the Christian tradition. Rinpoche and I were just speaking of if you go in some Christian traditions to a confession, and then the Christian teacher, I said Christian teacher to Rinpoche, Christian Lama, will give you a certain practice to do, a certain number of rosaries to do in order to purify the misdeed. So we find a very similarity even in this second category of a power of applying a remedy or antidote in other traditions.
Oh, that trouble demon kusel yedro, that cell demon and devil demon, cell demon and devil demon, chaba yumed, what the tajin was.
So when we look at those points in the going back to the remedies themselves and the 6 categories of remedy, those 2 categories are questionable. The power of the dependence upon recitation and then dependence on names. So whether those really we are found or not is questionable.
What did did something in the Kushiba and
So when we think along this way and have an understanding of these things, then we can really increase our awareness or increase our understanding.
What did
We say that we can't say that the Christian tradition and other religions are mutually exclusive because we find these connections.
So going back
to the 4 opponent powers, the third opponent power, the power of turning away from faults, we have as Buddhists, and other religious traditions also other religious traditions have the tradition of turning away from faults, turning away from one's misdeeds, committing to turning away.
Tanga diva saga men have no what in Yambal had to be taught Yobaina, and Deva Mago, Jutan Chupung Le, Ranki Saba, Yella Sata Juba, Jenga Saba, Jesu Yeron, someone don't know this, do the Yamini because soon does.
And we're saying in the future, I will not accumulate this misdeed. I will not abandon the Dharma. I will not engage in bad actions myself. I will not cause others to engage in bad actions, nor will I rejoice in the creation of bad actions or non-virtuous actions.
What that in the mouth? And the doors you have thanks to Marvel, thanks to John to Sanjum. John and then also Nami John to Naji issued on Kusu Yajama, the Kusule John to Yoro, Chulujenda, John to Yoro, and the Shanju Sangumbas and then Jenda Yumekanji, what the Chabad was.
So the 4th category, the power of foundation or the power of basis. The first category, there are 2 categories under that. First is going for refuge, and then second, the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So certainly, this first category of going for refuge, here as Buddhists we go for refuge to the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and other religious traditions have this idea of going for refuge themselves, but the second category of the mind that aspires to enlightenment is exclusive to the Buddhist tradition, so we don't find that in the other traditions. So there's a difference there.
What then what the Sajin and Tambu what the Sanji Deva Shiju with Tonazu Bego Tomachi, Toma Shiju, Nibaje, Deva Shiju, Suma Marba, Tajiba, what the Dijabatere, Dasu Zobun da Jebas, Dasu Zobun da Jebawate, Jibat Janjibat, Saji Jibatere, Saji Jibate, Saji Jibatel Tanjanji, Saji Gooding, Saji Go. Jiban Dasu Zobun da Jebatele, Saji Gooding, Yudua, Tenamananga Mabujo, the Kalejin, Sonore.
So now we've gone to the end of that third category, which is the remedy for misdeeds. So looking at Jayan Sheba's outline again, we have the first category, which we've gone through, which is the method, the need for a method of remedy when we engage in non-virtues, even if we are under the influence of afflictions or a state of unknowing. And then a second category, which is how to repair or remedy one's infractions or downfalls. And then the next category, which we are currently going through, which we just went through, is the remedy for misdeeds or sins. And then we find the presentation of the four opponent powers. And then now we've arrived at the fourth category, where there is a large amount of inquiry and almost philosophical inquiry, and it begins with this point that sins are removed in several ways, and we'll within this section find 9 actual categories according to Jayan Sheba's outline. So in category number 4, we find 9 points made.
Nebu Yunsu Zubane, Doji Chang was what the Tamo de Taje, that Deba Tenjito Chandro, that Neba Deba Talune, Nandro, Dunga Chembuji, Juna, Ne Dunga Chuaji, Jujuans, what in the Mare, Tenunguzu, the Tamo Tenere. Deba Talu said, Ancient Kuzugutan, Nangasotan, Ancient Tulma, Saji Luna, they were never easy loan, Chitakatuni, Angeluna, Deba Talune, Nandro, Dunga Chimichi, Juna, Dunga Chungo, Ji, Jujua, Dunga Chungo, Jujua, Street and Wa, Nandro. Jang Ti Dunga Manuba Nibaje Tati Manuba Tati Tenla Go Na Taji Tanan Road was Taluji Tejin do Jun Revenue Goba Na Jun Tonga Tung Yun Talia Ten Yum Goban Judesa. Tian Zhongken Doju Zhong Dan Niebo, Doji Duma Du Dan Shu Zhama Radang, Junrela Subgune Yinbe, Taji the Neba Medo, what about the Guino Dambutre? Ancient Catulusian.
So we're on page 254 in English. So we end category number 3 with the power of the foundation or power of basis. So it says the fourth power is going for refuge to the 3 jewels and cultivating the spirit of enlightenment. With regard to this, the conqueror spoke in general about a variety of ways through which beginners could remove their sins. However, complete remedy requires all 4 powers to be present. And then we have now the beginning of the 4th category. And it says, so this all will be, and there's 9 categories in this 4th category. And this, all that we're going to read here is within that first of the 9 categories. So it isn't, all these points aren't, the 9 categories. This is the first of the 9 categories. So sins are removed in several ways. One way is when small sufferings occur instead of great sufferings of rebirth in miserable realms. Another is that even if you are born in a miserable realm, you did not experience its sufferings. Still another is that a mere headache in the present life serves to remove the sin, Likewise, the sins whose effects you must experience for a long time may become ones whose effects you experience for only a short time, or that you need not experience at all. There is no certainty about how sins are removed because it depends on there is no certainty about how sins are removed because it depends on whether the purifier is of great or little strength, whether the remedy is one in which the four powers are complete or incomplete, intense or not intense, of long or short duration, and so forth. So this is that first category in the outline. So now we'll go back to the top here. So the sins are removed in several ways. One way is when small sufferings occur instead of the great sufferings of rebirth in the miserable realms. When a purification takes place, the actual experience can be lessened in terms of the amount of suffering because one has applied the four opponent powers. So for instance, if you have created the karma which would give you the result of an experience in a hot hell realm, if you apply the four opponent powers, it can be lessened. So for instance, then one would, instead of that, be born as a hungry ghost. And then it's lessened a little more, and then one is born as an animal instead. And then lessened a little more, and if one is born as a human being, then maybe in that particular lifetime that person gets tuberculosis or gets cancer. So we see how this purification takes place. It takes place in gradual increments, bit by bit. Make sure
that Deva Tas had the issue of Deva Tas Logre, Hindu Don, Kachet Killing Marbe, what in also what in Namak Shivanaji, Kuzu Killing do Tajisia.
So other religious traditions have this, the Yanju Suranang, the Gongam.
Yes,
let's say. Lesser. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll do. So other religious traditions certainly have confession or acknowledgement of downfalls. The Christian tradition has it, the Hindu tradition has it, the Muslim tradition has it. But whether or not they state that by doing so we have future suffering experiences which are lessened or become smaller, we have to look into. So do they have it or don't they have this presentation? So we have to check and see. But they certainly have, Rinpoche said, confession. It's just whether or not they have this idea of the lessening of the results or not.
Chinda Peji Mare, Jabu Majida who Papa said, Nyawa Chivas, Nyawa doing your Maris. What is Tentabu Momuja Yobarda?
Come Papa say so.
Papa said, what the Shadow Jen Taba in Jerota. Nyawa Chivas is Nyawa doing your Maris.
That's so.
Pulujavanaji, Monsayaji.
Oh, that's so. So then it says, another is that if you are born in a miserable realm, you do not have to experience its sufferings. Here this is referring to, even though you have been born as a result of your karma in a lower realm, you don't have to experience the same sufferings that are usually experienced there. So we find a story of King Marchetta who killed his father, and as a result was born into a hell realm, but didn't have to experience the sufferings that were there. He was able to actually jump out of that hell realm. He was able to jump out of the various sufferings, or jump away from the various types of suffering.
다 디바 다수지 로와데 디바 체부 뉴고 니위도 게나무도 걸로 수수 멀제네 고 나와서지 디바 다데 가서 간데 제비단 캔시도 어두스기 디바 다누 거다.
Bless
클랭까지 카르까지.
Bless
어디신데야 어디 디바 체부도 다누 거지로다.
Bless So the next is still another, is that a mere headache in the present life serves to remove the sin. So here, if one gets a headache, or tuberculosis, or cancer, or gets into a plane crash, or gets into a car crash, all of these can be examples of the lessening of a misdeed. All of these could be examples of fruitions of karma in which that karma previously was greater and is lessened by application of the four opponent powers. So I try to put it a couple ways, but they're all correct. Then it says, likewise, the sins whose effects you must experience for a long time may become ones whose effects you must experience for only a short time, or that you need not experience at all. So if previously the karma would have ripened into a very long duration of suffering, if there's an application of the four opponent powers, it can actually shorten the amount of time of that experience, and shorten it to the point of maybe 1 hour, or 1 week, or 1 month, or 1 year, instead of an eon.
타지 등에 보면 도스 디발 자단 지게 도 샤주 셈비 샤단 지나 디발 쳬부 다르게 라제 인진스 다르게 네투 중도 다르게 당가수로 상루시 중데스 쳬부기 쳬부 다르게 링 다르게 타지 디바다르 지바지 시야요 마레스 어디 제르면서 어디 송도와 야
There is no certainty about how sins are removed, because it depends on whether the purifier is of great or little strength, whether the remedy is one in which the four powers are complete or incomplete, intense or not intense, of long or short duration, and so forth. Really, the amount of purification that takes place depends upon the purifier, the agent of that actual four opponent powers practice. So for instance, the bodhisattva who is engaging in a purification has a much greater amount of misdeed purified than a Prachika Buddha or a solitary realizer. And then a solitary realizer has a much greater, a solitary realizer purifies a much greater amount of misdeeds when he or she engages in the four opponent powers than a Shravaka or a hearer. So it really depends upon the thinking. And because there are so many different ways of thinking, we can't say that that misdeeds are removed like this specifically. For each individual, because each individual is different in his or her aptitude. So in Jayan Sheba's outline, there are 9 categories, and just look at how much information is contained in just that first category, according to Jayan Sheba.
Ta nipa tene mare, nipa dudu dondowa ne, keba jayan ne, le na keba jayan ne, chumi sawa she sumba ne, nyebi tuji kumba meba la kongji, tuji nyebi sheba tere jana ne, nyungen jan daba sonde, jedon de shen le ndada, kanda nyebi shu nyewa na, ndibi chujin yinba tada ki, dudan tenbi nyebi ten seba, Siba yide puna, seji yala suba jino, tambi chuji dibala suba, tangje jan chishike du shebi, chujin yino sheshawa ne, ribi nonsenji tongyu nena ne, maluba seba, yuwa yino wate, nipa tere wate, nipa. Nipa ta, tanima tunda na wate ledum da. Nyabu toji changu ne, tene, shadan jina diba taba ina, 안는 도도던 도알레레나 깨바자는 취무자스 소문도에서 어디 더던 게는 도와스 저버저버이나 어디 잡아 마주스 네 레나 깨바자는 취무자스 야드니부 도지송 샤다 마지나 취무자시 비도레스 샤나 제나 다요레스 어디가도 장시부터 되는 도스다 야
Then now we get into the second category of Jayan Sheba's outline. It says the statement in both sutra and texts on discipline that karma does not perish even in 100 eons is made with regard to the karma for which you have not cultivated a remedy with the four powers. However, if you purify yourself with a remedy having the aforementioned four powers, it is said that you will even remove karma that you are bound to experience. And then we find a quote from Haribhadra from the long explanation of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 lines. This is the second category, and it is speaking about this what seems to be a contradiction. Because we're stating that when we apply the four opponent powers that we're able to purify our misdeeds. And here we find a statement that Buddha made in sutras and in the Vinaya text, the text on discipline, where he states that karma does not perish even in 100 eons, but we're stating that there is perishability. What Jayan Sheba states is that the Buddha is speaking about karma that has not had the application of the four opponent powers. Implicitly within that statement, we find, when we look at the commentaries, that point made, that this is specifically referring to karma that has not had any remedy applied to it. Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. We'll take a break. Statement that Buddha made, which is karma does not perish even in 100 eons. We have to respond by saying this is not necessarily so, because karma that has had the application of the four opponent powers does perish. That is the second point, or second category in Jayan Sheba's outline. Okay, This one?
Oh, yeah.
Sache nipa tsa.
Ta nipa tsarwa. Nipa tsarwa.
Ngene ngatsu the senge example the long lama son. The
Seji yala suba terwa.
The Jeton Delpa.
Ta Jeton wate ta kase saji nipa tuwa terwa dudu tuwa ne ta kante le keba jan chuma da seyate nipa taji son shadang maji na shibitun res. She na wate diba tatu res. Tanda wate Jeton de shen le son dos Jeton de shen le tar kanda nye bi shu nye wa nas kanda nye bi shu nye bu toje ta nye bi le suna ane ndi bi chu shin di ba ma go kanda che bi ina ya ndi bi chu shin re ta ne res yin ba ta da na tu dan den bi nye bi den se ba di ba to che bu ta da ane tu no tempi nyebu toje gomba ina wote seba sigres puna seji ala suba sil nabu kazi yoba ina tuna tanu dos example jinos tambi choji deba la suba tanji jang jeki du shibi chujen ino sheshawa sheshayu bi lonsen ji tongyi nena na maluba seba juwa ina wote nibatre.
So, still in category number 2, it says now, in the text on discipline, the Buddha stated that karma does not perish even in 100 eons. So, this is referring specifically to karma that has not had the application of the 4 opponent powers. Because if there has been an application, there is perishability. So we find a quote from Haribhadra's long explanation of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 lines that supports the points that are made here, still in category number 2. Thus, with powerful remedies, you can completely eliminate the unfavorable factors. So this is stating whatever the misdeeds are that you've created, you can completely eliminate them, which diminish when you possess the group of remedies. So those misdeeds diminish, they become lessened when you apply the 4 opponent powers. This is, for example, like the tarnish on gold. So gold can get very tarnished, but it is possible to clear away that tarnish so that it is back to its original state as far as the way that it looks. Likewise, our misdeeds can be cleared away like tarnish. Because of all such things as obstructions to the sublime teaching will necessarily diminish, as just explained, you will completely eliminate infractions which originate from arrogance. And then, just going back, I'm so sorry. Previously, when Rinpoche was giving the teaching on the power of antidotes and the section on creating images of the Buddha, Rinpoche said dependence upon images. Rinpoche stated that no matter what material you make it out of, if you have this faith of conviction, then you're engaging in that remedy. So if it's made of copper, iron, or clay, or gold or silver, if that faith is there and you construct an image with the material, then there is a remedy present. So I apologize from that. I remembered at break that I just didn't translate that, so I want to make sure I got it in there. Diksun Rinpoche.
Ta somba dilawate, somba dile, somba dilawate, somba desedere, ta somba nyabi diba ta janse. Ta wat somba saji somba de dona dilawate, nyabi diba de taba ina tulduba yodrota. Nyabi diba nyabi to sango shadan jin taba ina, nyabi le chuji nyabi le maibata, revenue manga beje. Shadan jen tabiye and the gabi le chu mangabi le imbatas what the tubat leader ta tubat what the tubut leader is ta.
So now the next category begins a debate about the karma that is certain. So it states that if there can be this application of the 4 opponent powers, then is karma that is certain really karma that is uncertain? Or is karma that is definite? It's sometimes translated as really indefinite. So then this category deals with that.
Then da kaya keba jaya shesha wala suba ne nyebi shu gomba mena shesha sheba sha desa.
Shuku gats do.
Shuku jatan kuju marbe taki shuku dire ribi lonsen je nena marbe seba juwa yenos sajini ba chandro. Ta de shuku de somba dire kaya lena keba jaya ne shesha wala somba tene nyebi shu gomba mena shesha wala soba. Nyebi toje son shadan sheba mena keba jaya chuma da sheba dunre matu shadan jen tatu res. Tata mainas nyebi toje son shadan jen diba ta mens lava ina Never told you some was shot on Debatama Mana, London gave a town that and get this. London gave Tamal and also Tonga and Tamadele on the Bosong Shibandos one person from there, Debatatu res. May she see what Never is a corridor, Deba Shavatane, Mame, say what the person Jane, what the Tangato those, London gave the National Mobile. And the town that and get the resa. Never told you some was shot on China, Debata Mabatas, Neda, Tony Gona, and Denzil Manevatas. To China Deva Madua Gonsona, Deva Drovas with Denzil Manevata. When Taba drew my wishes on the Taba Drizzy Lula Manevatasana, what the Manasa do Mal, no. China Deva Madua Shesuna, Denzil Nero. Denzil Nosuna, Denzil to the Chatan, Condo Tatumul, Nyamul Nere, Tell Nosuna, T. de Vichela Nachi, Donella Subano Marve. What they never told you Shadans in Devataba Mess and what the Tanta getting race, London getting race. What to say about Wood, the cage would do that.
So this debate, we find the points being made here. You should understand that the statement, any karma at all, even for 100 eons, is qualified by, if you have not cultivated the group of remedies. Were this not the case, there would be a contradiction with reason and a contradiction with many sutras. So if it is the case that karma is not perishable, then this would contradict the other points that have been made, where, for instance, in the Tantra requested by Sabahu, it makes many statements that the recitation burns away the tree of our misdeeds and melts away the snow mountain of our misdeeds and illuminates and clears away the darkness of our misdeeds. So if it was the case that certain karma wasn't perishable, then that point, that karma is not perishable, and the point that is made in this other text that karma is perishable would be mutually exclusive. So we have to understand what is meant in each case, and what is meant here is that this is karma that has not had that application. And so there is no contradiction with the sutras where we find this presentation, or with reasoning. So when we look at reasoning, for instance, when we have the view which is incorrect that phenomena is truly established, that view can be harmed by the understanding that phenomena is not truly established. So by understanding that, then you understand, by understanding the lack of true establishment of phenomena, then what that creates is also harmed. So understanding the lack of true establishment of phenomena harms the mistaken view that phenomena is truly established. And by harming that mistaken view that phenomena is truly established, you harm that grasping at true establishment. By harming the grasping at true establishment, then you're able to harm those afflictions that arise, such as attachment, hatred, and delusion. And by harming those afflictions, one is able to get rid of the cyclical suffering that occurs, the suffering of birth, the suffering of aging, the suffering of sickness, the suffering of death. So this is the application of reasoning. If we understand that these quotes that are made in these different texts that state, by applying the four opponent powers, misdeeds diminish, then we're able to use with reasoning that karma that is not certain, that karma that is certain then can necessarily perish if it states that misdeeds perish with the application of these things. Then Rinpoche the ngai ganje lagu the chu dema madrupa the chu dema drupa the dancing nugudu then the drawa gare the
and this is not all never to so shadan jin deva taba mention law suna
lesser
law chugro da
lesser
never so to so shadan jin deva taba mention law suna ta deva taba mena an lo dang ge ga reba dang ge ga jiseni ko da
lasa
lo dang ge na an 상지 켈은 해지는 농장은 되거든.
lesser
상지 켈은 시르발 농장소나 시르는 가서 상지 농켈은 말해서 그러다.
lesser
땅하다 루마투나 제박 루마투나 농장은 안에 농켈은 말하다. 아주 상지 농켈은 말해서.
lesser
라손 칼라다. 제바 땅하다 땅마투나 타바 주마이메 시빌로 되게 타바 주지로 문화와서나 문화스 라도 말하다.
lesser
nurse logo. Chuno devo maruba shibulu tege denzin munabasan lotuma nurse logo. Denzin nasun yamul nenu. Dongel nenu. Ribatan geomar. What the ribatin drosasuna and the local.
Ah, lesser. The cheek lama son. So then by using that analysis just stated, that by harming the grasping at true establishment is harmed by the understanding the phenomena is not truly established, you're able to, through analysis, prove the perishability of misdeeds by looking at it in that way. So then you support the scriptural quote with your analysis. So you can't just say to a non-Buddhist, for instance, well, it is this way because Buddha said so. You have to be able to support the scriptural presentations with analysis, with the use of correct signs and so forth. Selpulasam. So when we use analysis, we're looking at things in such a way that we prove things, make a proof through a correct sign. It's not sufficient to just say that by applying the four opponent powers, one can purify misdeeds, one can eradicate misdeeds because the Buddha said so. We have to be able to support it through analysis. And so when we analyze things, we can harm which is not correct. So, for instance, by analyzing the lack of true establishment of phenomenon, we then harm the grasping at true establishment, or the understanding that phenomena is truly established. By understanding that a rope is a rope and is not a snake, we're able to harm the understanding that it's a snake, that this rope is a snake. So we're using analysis in order to harm which is incorrect. So in the same way that we do it with those topics, we apply this to this topic so that we are able to understand it by way of correct sign instead of just believing it because it was stated by the Buddha. So if we state that there is not a way to purify our misdeeds through the four opponent powers, then this contradicts scripture and contradicts analysis.
So if 지임바던 사직 시송배시나 호텔 제가 말해줘다.
The Lung Garde. Okay.
Jendela tembe longo godo moro gabi yula rande ya yulas hotel lesinje bu doyoroda. Jendela saji shezon be je dona rego marije bata saji lokele marije. Reba matu.
So non-Buddhists do not assert the Buddha. So they don't assert the Buddha. Therefore, you can't use this as a reason for your thesis that you state. So we find this point made in Lama Tsongkhapa's Essence of Eloquence, where it states that it's not suitable to use the fact that the Buddha stated something to support your thesis to non-Buddhists, because they do not assert the Buddha. So it's necessary to use analysis as well in order to arrive at those conclusions. Because if we say to a non-Buddhist that there is purification by way of the four opponent powers, because the Buddha said so, then this won't be a way to prove this point to that individual, because they don't assert the Buddha. So therefore it's necessary to use correct signs in this case to support the thesis.
Lona rebani nan tu to reba gurus taduna jamame rebani shagwe de reba dangi juda kelena pambo semiji bomono shirsa reba dangi juda kelesuna te kelenge to semiji bomo maris
semiji bomo marisena
semiji bo sezosa daja gutuma semiji bi lagoro semiji bo lagoro 타도나 리바니지 타도나 리바메 자마니지 에구데사 땅다 두고레서다 땅다 등교 두등교 켈라소나 리바등기 두다 켈란데스 은체미죠 최종사가 집에가 말이지다.
So the Buddha has stated that what has been presented can't be contradicted by reason. So it can't. These statements can't have contradiction. They can't be mutually exclusive with reasoning. So we have to understand this and know that we can't have a contradiction with reason or with the sutras if we are going to state that something is fact or correct. So that statement of correctness can't be contradicted or harmed by analysis and the use of correct signs or scripture. So this section, the third category, is very important. And then a debate will take place that states that if this karma can be purified, is karma certain or is it uncertain? Is karma that is certain uncertain? Is all karma uncertain? So these type of questions then arise in this next section.
Nga bara nyuwa somba yang dini sheba yinos nga ban jung sheba yino ma nga ba somba dini bi shu ma gon su sen jang jebo renga wa ni yimbi sheba shawos ta nga bi le ta ma nga bi le se to wanda le ja go re jibata nga bara nyuwa somba yang dini shesos nga ba to zo sha da ma jina nga ba nyo she nyo ne lesa de ja ures shada chena ya anen debute anen mayu ba ina an mangabile res wa denin chaba yo res nyo nga ba so ba deni ji she ba ino manga ba so ba ne bi shu ma gu se ne bi shu ma gu se jas ne ba ma gu na ya kulun debi nga ba me ke le de le manga bile se res ne bi shu Maguna Rebu Nabatu Yuki later Nabi Les, Nabi let the Mangabile Gagama Chabat res. What is that?
So then this question arises, what is the difference between karma that is certain and karma that is uncertain? So then it states here, you can also understand the Buddha's expression, karma whose effects you will definitely experience, with the qualification. So this is karma that is certain. It's referring to here, with the qualification that you have not cultivated the group of remedies. Understand that the Buddha's expression, karmas whose effects you will not definitely experience, refers to effects that occur only sometimes, even though you may not have cultivated the group of remedies. So here, when we have karma that is uncertain, it isn't qualified by having had the application of the four opponent powers, when we have this uncertain karma. So this is just something that will not necessarily, definitely produce results. So it says effects that will occur sometimes. Whereas karma that is definite is referring to karma that has been done and accumulated and not had the application of the four opponent powers. Karma that is done and accumulated that has the application of the four opponent powers can perish. Is something whose effects you will not definitely experience. It becomes something you will not definitely experience because of the way that it lessens your misdeeds. So this section then is dealing with that doubt that can arise and explaining the differences between those two topics and showing how that karma that is certain, that hasn't had a remedy, is certain. And karma that has had a remedy can be purified, but that doesn't mean that it's what karma that is uncertain means. So that's a separate category altogether. Diksum.
That's how you saw no water to water. Never told you to Shadok in the Debo Madana, London, Ribat, Negas of Nilegua.
So
then the wood, then Olula, and then I believe the Mangabile Chaba members as Gilegua.
So there are 2 points to this section in Jayan Sheba's outline. First point is that if you state that there can't be a purification through the four opponent powers, then this contradicts scripture and contradicts reasoning. So this is the first part of that section. And then the second part of this section deals with karma that is certain and karma that is uncertain and the differences and so forth. This is the point behind category number 3.
What that Sajiba, what then Sajiba and Janji made the Tago Niba. Jungan to Chung Le Ten Jungan Chung Le Ten Namada Chance, Kantabati, Nami, Nyam Hepe, Rebu Maniba Potanchiba Nesata. That never does some Shadan, Deba Shadan Chicken, Chimbuton Ding, Chimbusun, Madasun. Never does Shadan Chicken, Deba, never does not talk on the Nebu, Tochewa, Ding, Chungo. 송용으로다. 단예부 총마도 매바이나 안고 뉴뉴지마다 말와. 뉴뉴질마다 바이나 간 다바티 저긴 데부디 용마레스. 보다지는 송도스 자지베 지바들. 단예부 시도종 샤단지바이나 샤단지는 슈치와다 진노 총송용마베. 총이나야 그 디발 바서지는 그래스. 다저 Tabati Rebut Yungumares, example, Potachiva Sungudusa, Jibata.
So the fourth category deals with the levels of the a non-virtue that are purified the levels of non-virtue that are purified depend upon the level of the purification that takes place. So if you have a great level of purification taking place, then a great amount of misdeed is purified. If you have a medium level of purification, and as a note, depending on the purifier and so forth, a medium in motivation, the medium level of purification produces a medium level of misdeeds that are purified, and then a small level of purification purifies a small level misdeeds. So this fourth section deals with that. In Lamrim Chenmo, the Jepa Kaba Gutso.
Tagi Sumba de Shudere, Theatre Shabatan, Dambala Subi Andu, Theatre Shabatan, what did Jadam Guju Gogo
Toga.
Theatre Shabatan, Dambala Subi, Namen Jimmy, Nebanyamba Sheba, Nane, Jendan Tejan, Namen Jiba Manjulas,
Lesso.
What did my young do that?
So now on page 255, we find where this fourth category starts. It says, in this way, confession, restraint, and so forth weaken the capacity of karma to bear fruit. Such karma will not bear fruit even when it comes in contact with other conditions. Then the Chenmo Din Chungo Kabiare. So it says here, such karma will not bear fruit. So we weaken the capacity at a small level. We weaken the capacity at a medium level. Weaken the capacity at a great level. And then the fruitional results won't occur that would have normally at that level. So the fruition which that karma would have normally produced will be lessened depending upon lessened. How much lessened depends upon the level of purification that's taking place, the level of the four opponent powers that's taking place. So once that application takes place, once that remedy is presented, then the fruitional result can't occur that normally would have, and what does occur is lessened, is a result that is as much less as the power of the opponent power that is being applied. Sorry if it's a little choppy, but I think it makes sense in that way. So I'm going to just leave the translation at that. The level, the fruit that won't be bared is the fruit that normally would have because of that karma, and the fruit that is bared depends upon how much, how great the level of purification is. Geshe Rinpoche.
Takade nyebuge den dibate chibu taba yinanda, ndin taba yinanda, chungu taba yinanda, taba di chotegi dongen yugu bade ngasung chigmares. Bitte naji kondu tan lode den gada jungba yina, gada chibu jungba tan, ndin jungba tan, chung gazin jungba yina, jung choge ne dewa yungu mare, mali chigmare, sal chigmare den jabures.
So it's very similar when we become angry or have wrong views, and our root virtues are destroyed. We have the root virtues that are great level root virtues, medium level root virtues, and small level root virtues. So what those, depending upon the level of the anger or misdeed, the amount of our root virtue that disintegrates depends upon the level of the misdeed that we're engaging in. So it's very similar to the point that point is very similar to the point that we're making here about non-virtue and the purification of non-virtue by way of the four opponent powers. So the level of, so once our great, medium, or small level of root virtue is taken away, then the fruitional results of happiness and the levels of happiness of the gods and humans and so forth are diminished. In that same way as the non-virtue is diminished, and therefore the fruitional results of that non-virtue are diminished because of that. So the same thing happens to our virtue when it is comes in contact with these negativities. Whatever level of negativity is taking place is directly concordant with the level of happiness that goes away as well. And in the case of non-virtue, the level of suffering that goes away or diminishes.
So who
stated this? Haribhadra stated this, and we find Haribhadra over on the wall there amongst these other Madhyamaka pandits. So Haribhadra has many very different texts. So this text, the long explanation of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, in 8,000 lines he wrote. And when we look at his view in the Madhyamaka system, there are two schools, or the middle way system. There are two schools, the middle way consequence school and the middle way autonomy, or Madhyamaka Prasangika and the Madhyamaka, I can't remember right now, I'm sorry, which is the autonomy school. And that autonomy school has two different categories. There is the middle way autonomy, which is leaning towards the sutra school, and then there's a middle way autonomy that is called the yogic autonomy school, which is leaning more towards the Chittamantra view. So the Haribhadra is the Senge Zampo Dawagara Kelen Dode. The Gonga Mevachi, Lobun Letinje, the Dawagara Kelendu Ranju. Okay, so. So Haribhadra holds the view that is the Madhyamaka, where we find a similarity to the Sutra school, and some similar assertions in the Sutra school. So this is the view that Haribhadra holds. So this is who he is, and the quote. A little background on who he is, who Haribhadra is. Sorry.
Gwal Nendagres, Nyabra Jobans, Maguayan, Habatan, Dombatan, Shabala Subi, Nyebu, the Diba Mago to Nyabotoja Sangone, and the Shadan Jeno Nendago, Maguayan, Habatan, Dombatan, Nyabala Nebaton, Shejela Domba, Chabala Subi, Nyebu, two Nyaban Jobasa. Nyabotoji song Shadan Cheba ina what the DB Nubat Nyandagres, Nyaba Juba Tadane, Jan Su to Saint Johnsa. And the Gawa ina da, Deba ina da ko, Gawale, and the Conjut on Lutak Nuyongre, and the Deba le, Nyabotoji Shadan Cheba ina, Nyabu Nuyongre, Nubati, Churge, and the Jebut Yomaris.
Lesser.
Jan Tuna Yomaris.
Lesser.
Su to Saint John. Gawatan Magi Sabunji Neba Nyam Hebe Kaya
So before I start this translation, I just confused something. It happens occasionally, so I want to just clarify it. Previously, when we were speaking of the view holder of the Middle Way Autonomy School leaning to the Sutra School, I stated Hari Bhadra's name, and that was a mistake. It was Baba Vega and the Blaze of Reasoning, so I want to correct that, and I just apologize for that. And Rinpoche actually repeated it, and I should have caught it, but I didn't catch it. And both of Hari Bhadra and Baba Vega are Madhyamaka view holders and holders of the autonomy view, so I apologize for that mistake. So we begin here with a quote from Baba Vega's Blaze of Reasoning, Lopun Litinje is his name in Tibetan. Wrong views and malice weaken virtuous karma. Remedies such as repudiation, restraint, and confession weaken bad karma. Whenever any of these attitudes are present, they reduce the potency of the seeds deposited by the virtuous and non-virtuous karma. Even though the combination of conditions for the karma to take effect are already in place. So where would an effect come from, and what would it be like? Because there is no combination of conditions for maintaining the potency of seeds deposited by karma, the time for being maintained has changed. Because of this, there is a thorough eradication of karma. So here, what this is speaking of is that when these non-virtuous attitudes arrive, they weaken our virtuous karma in the same way that when remedies, virtuous remedies arise, those weaken our non-virtuous karma. So the seeds that are present have a particular potency, and when these applications of non-virtue to virtue are made, then those seeds' potency become lessened. And when we have a virtue to non-virtue, then those seeds' potency become lessened. So the ability to produce the experience is lessened because the seed's potency is lessened. Diksung Rinpoche.
다수의 디바 남이 써니는 명의 디바단의 지요하레스 야 다수 yen다 지요하레스 칸이요 가서 가서데 때도 맞은 도와데 와도 칸이도 칸이 디바 네 네부 디바 체분디 중 답이나 답이 쇠되게 남이 등에다 내손 지야데 전투는 용어 말레스 지지
Jian Tsuma Yong Mare.
Jujian Tsuba Yina, David Yong Mares.
Oh, okay.
Dungan Yong Mares. Nason Chig Mares.
Lesso.
Ji Yuares.
Lesso.
Yan Dibata Jenda Ji Yuares.
Lesso.
Jenda Ji do the Shudrendo. Jenda the Garesana, never told you Shadan Jebaina, and then Nason Jia Leg and David Sendel Ping Waters. Oh,
lesso. Okay. So there are 2 points that are made that are different in this section. The first point that is made is if this karma is weakened. So in the case if the virtuous karma is weakened by non-virtue, or the non-virtuous karma is weakened by virtue, then even if the causes and conditions are in place, the effect can't occur. And it won't occur depending upon the level of purification. So we have small, medium, and great level of purification. So these misdeeds that would produce these results are lessened, and the fruitional result that normally would have been there is not. So this is the first point that's made. And then the second point that's made is that there are certain circumstances, there are other ways in which karma is purified, and that's in the case where there can be a purification that becomes a karma that gives rise to a result in this life. So in our lifetime, we could have, for instance, a headache or something of that nature that serves as the result of the karma that previously would have produced something else in the future lives or in the future. So we have, Rinpoche said then, the first category is this purification and this annihilation that takes place so that this fruitional result, it doesn't come about even if the causes and conditions are there. And then the second point, that there is another way that it can ripen, and that is by way of a karma that occurs in this life. So this is the second part of this section.
What the neighbor debata neighbor don't
tundu data.
Chen Suba may be two Jen to Junes, Jen Suba may be two Jen to June, Jen Susuna, Cheta Tawane, Shinto, Jimba Mai, the Sawan Madakan Legiu others. Chekitos, Tambi, Chun Zimba Shibati, Nuang Nabi, Debayan, Tonchu la Nuan Jurosa. Tambi Chun Zimbati, Tanya Batas, Shadan Jibaina, Nuang Nabi Lake, Nasul Jang, and Nuang Nabi Lake, and Jabut Sindel Memories. Sindel Memories. Couldn't ever remember him to water. Said the Chula Nuan Jute, Sheshawa dance, Jean, Nandu Dungan. Jean, Sheshawa dance, Jean, Gandu Lena, then a moon down now at Santa Joa, John Wons. Taka go out, Dibani them do it. Taka what touch with the led to Galo, Tonchu Sendel being what is. Tang and Luliage, and then Diba to Zokan Jebute, and then Calendar.
Because of this, there is a thorough eradication of karma. As it has been said, moreover, by upholding the sublime teaching, you will experience in this life the effects of a sin whose consequence you are certain to experience. And furthermore, with this remedy, karma for rebirth in the miserable realms transforms into a mere headache. So for instance, if you had accumulated a karma that would normally give rise to a hell realm rebirth, in the future lives, then it can be converted or changed into a karma that gives rise to an experience in this lifetime, in the experience, for instance, of a headache. If one engages in virtuous activities that serve as an opponent to our non-virtuous activities or our non-virtuous seeds, then in certain cases we can find this experience transforming from a future life to this life, actual ripening.
What that Sumba Jibat Tag Gawa Chemundi, Chungo, the Deba Chemundi, Montano Marba. Tabi Chute, Namin Debutuma, Tuna Yuma.
So, a great level of virtue purifies a great level of misdeed. A medium level of virtue purifies a medium level of misdeed. And small level of virtue purifies a small level of misdeed. And then those corresponding results that would have happened, those fruitional results that would have happened, are also then purified and can't occur. Those exact fruitional results which would have occurred, so we originally, just as a note, we originally have this karma that is deposited, and it has the potency to create this hell realm rebirth, say hot hell, and this is the great level of misdeed. Then it no longer can produce that fruitional result of hot hell realm rebirth because it doesn't have that potency. Let's do two. Drop, side on drop. So there are 2 points that are made in this section. First point that's made is that our non-virtuous karma can be purified, and the fruitional results, therefore, of that act are purified. And then a second point that at times, if we accumulate a great amount of virtue, then the experience of a misdeed can be converted from a rebirth in a lower realm to a mere headache in this lifetime. So it changes from a karma that gives rise to an experience in future lives to one that gives rise to an experience in this lifetime. So this is the fourth category, and we'll go over this again in the future.
Yeah.
So we'll do Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Sheda so we'll do.
Yeah. So
we're in no rush, so we're going to go through this very slowly.
Yeah.
So let's turn to the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Whew. Where am I? The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse it 3 times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denro Nang Hatsu Lamrim Chenmo Kang